what I said. The main reason why Judas was not forgiven, one is that he was not ordained to betray Jesus Christ. Initially, I said he didn't set out to betray Jesus Christ. Now they had the disciples who were with Jesus Christ, that he was too powerful. Recently, before he betrayed Jesus Christ had raised Lazarus from the grave.
All right.
After 4 days.
Okay.
You understand? So to him, he knew that if he betrayed Jesus Christ, his force is so powerful that the Roman authorities will do nothing to him.
Okay.
But the central point I'm trying to emphasize here is that it was greed that led to the betrayal of Jesus Christ by Judas. And the consequence is that he had to die.
That greed actually brought about the fulfillment of biblical prophecy. That was our first main talking point today. Let's move on to the second one. Nigeria this week served Africa a positive lesson of democracy when former military ruler Muhammadu Buhari defeated Goodluck Jonathan to become the first opposition leader to beat an incumbent through the ballot box. Up next, we examine how the leadership change could impact that country's bilateral relations with Cameroon. And I'm sure this is a factor that interests you a lot, Elie Smith.
Of course, yes.
What can Cameroon expect to see as change in its relations with Nigeria?
Well, the thing is that those who are governing Abuja are going to change, which means that the way Cameroon used to treat with the government in the preceding government in Abuja with that of Mr. Buhari will be very different. And as Buhari even said himself, which is something which Cameroon has not been very excelling itself in it, was on a part of, on the side of collection of information as far as the war on Boko Haram is concerned, and also on trade. We have to understand that Nigeria is the biggest African economy, ranked 26th in the world. Cameroon is 16th in Africa, beaten even by a non-state like the Democratic Republic of the Congo.
Okay.
So Cameroon has a lot to benefit from Nigeria. So, and in terms, for example, of democracy, I read a post on Facebook written by Dr. Aboya, who was saying that we always like Manasseh. And I really liked it very much. He said we always like to commend and salute something good in other countries. Why can't Cameroon learn from it? We know here very well, I'm not afraid of saying it, in 1992, Paul Biya lost the election here.
It was alleged.
It was alleged to have lost, but if we go basing on what you call alleged, before Mr. Jonathan conceded defeat, he never had official results.
Okay.
In Cameroon here, we knew everywhere that he never won any elections, but he gripped the power and stayed there for so long, for 30 years, and we have the disaster we have today. What we have to learn is that even on the opposition part is that, look at the opposition APC, it is because they decided to unite.
All right.
They had to bury their individual pride. They had to choose he who was best among them. And they looked around and found that it was General Buhari who was best. If it is in Cameroon here, people will sit somewhere and start concocting some type of conspiracy theory saying, okay, let's meet he who cannot speak English and French will not be our leader. And things like that. I think Cameroonians have to learn a lot about what has taken place in Nigeria.
Prince Afwakom, President Paul Biya was among the first African leaders to extend words of congratulations to President-elect Muhammadu Buhari. Do you see this as normal diplomatic tradition or some kind of disguise to befriend the new Nigerian president? Remember, President Paul Biya has been having not very comfortable relations with Goodluck Jonathan, rather, over Boko Haram.
Yeah, I think not long from now we will start congratulating ourselves. The same as we're sending congratulation messages outside. I thought that I was discussing with somebody yesterday. He was saying that Nigeria has taught a lesson to Cameroon. I told him that no, it's not a lesson. If we are not doing it in the right way, it doesn't mean that we don't know. Because I remember in 1990s, in one of the declarations our President Paul Biya made in the conference center in Yaoundé, that was during a meeting of heads of state that came from all over. He said every country has its own way of practicing democracy.
But democracy is standard.
Yes, but I could not understand. So if is that we have our own kind of way of practicing democracy, then I will not say we are learning a lesson from Nigeria. So Nigeria has been practicing the,
Elie,
can call it the
Smith,
real
you can fire back
democracy.
before we move on to Malimu.
I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah.
Democracy is universal. There is no kind of indigenization or
Contextualized democracy.
to
I was
contextualize.
quoting it. It's
No,
not me
you're
saying.
quoting. Yes, the problem with Mr. President Paul, I'm a journalist. I don't have any belonging to anything. I have my independent way of speaking. The thing is that he has never lived one bit to all his promises. Have you ever read his famous book, what is
Communal
liberalism? You will discover that in that book, he's really a Democrat, but in practice, he does the contrary. There is nothing, you can never tell me, we are learning from Nigeria. Cameroonians should be humble enough. We should stop being haughty. We are learning, this is a country that is twice the population of Cameroon, 50 million voters, 150,000 polling stations, and within 72 hours, they are able to produce a result. Here we have 5 million voters. We are not able to have biometric registering. We can, though it is.
But the electronic card readers, Elie Smith in Nigeria actually failed.
No,
Even
out
President...
out of 150, we had about 400 which had failed.
All right, let's move on to Mwalimu Bandolo with this question. Mwalimu, was it foreseeable Buhari's victory, considering that Goodluck Jonathan had actually lost a couple of political clouds and only woke up from his, well, some call it inertia, at the tail end of his mandate against Boko Haram in particular?
Yes, I'd like to concord with Elie Smith. The one thing that we should not do when we talk in public is to tell lies to the public. We should not behave as some expatriates or some...
Are you suggesting that
No, I didn't. I was not referring to him.
All right.
I'm just saying that we have a moral responsibility to defend justice, to speak the truth when we are given the opportunity in public, regardless of what might happen. Because when we look at our situation in Cameroon, it's not the best. You will not stand out there and be proud that you have a leader who has been there for 32 years or 30 years. I mean, in Africa, within the African context, we have not even taken off in democracy. And so why would we not learn from Nigeria? I'd like to remind you, if you are not aware, that Nigeria has been so indispensable as far as Cameroon's general lifestyle has been concerned. The best intellectuals we have ever had in Cameroon, get it clearly, they had their education in Nigeria. In fact, the first cardinal that Cameroon has had in the Catholic Church was schooled in Nigeria. The person who had the first PhD degree in Cameroon, the first Cameroonian to have a PhD was Professor Emeritus
from the English-speaking
No, I said Cameroonian. Because Fonlon studied in Nigeria before going. Fonlon laid the foundation stone to the University of Yaoundé 1. That was the only state university. You understand? So I'm talking about Cameroon. So the best brains we have had in Cameroon passed through Nigeria. Now Nigeria is teaching us a democratic lesson, whether you like it or not.
All right.
Western style, in what sense? It is unprecedented in a sub-Saharan African country, a black country to be more specific, that before the final results are proclaimed, the sitting president calls an opposition to concede defeat.
I'm going to come back to you with that question, but let's find out, was it foreseeable?
It was foreseeable. Victory? Why? Because Jonathan did not meet up to the promises he gave to Nigerians. Let me explain. Let me give you some.
Briefly.
Jonathan pardoned notorious criminals in the Nigerian government, if you are not aware. Jonathan, as a matter of fact, is partly responsible for the successes of Boko Haram that has now affected even Cameroon and the region as a whole. Why? At the beginning, when the insurgency started, he didn't take it serious. And now he started getting into it, 1 month, 2 weeks, 3 weeks before the election, just to make believe. Jonathan, for your information, I'm really very sorry to say it, was not the charismatic leader we needed for a Nigerian nation. Why? Because there was widespread corruption under his leadership. Now I want you to conclude by saying that despite all the shortcomings, we still appreciated what he did at the end by conceding defeat.
Bobby, did he really have a choice? This is somebody who apparently has lost face in front of the world. Let me give you a quote.
Yes.
When he called Buhari, he said, "Nobody's ambition is worth the blood of any single Nigerian."
Yes. And
In that way, he was calling for peace and the protest to be softening.
I remember
and quelled.
that is what happened in 1992. That's what happened in 1992 after the elections, presidential elections in Cameroon, because someone did not want to see the blood of a Cameroonian down. So I want here to insist that the lesson that Nigeria is teaching us, is not that we don't know, but we have hijacked something to rely on it. I think you get me right. We don't want, not that we don't want to learn. We know that that's the right thing that we have to do, but we are not doing. That is why I am saying that we are not listening, because we know that lesson, but we don't want to do it. We don't want to do. I don't want to go into to the details. So I was just quoting something that the lesson that Nigeria is teaching us is a lesson that we know, but we don't want to practice it. Yes.
Elie Smith, in 2011, over 800 people were killed when Goodluck Jonathan beat the same Buhari in a presidential election. Now, this display of, heroism, he actually ranked Buhari, congratulated him, and acknowledged defeat. Did he have another choice rather than get out in a dignified manner?
Well, I think he had another choice. Like a typical African, he would have done like, I'm sorry, my colleague by my right here seems to be somehow sarcastic or whatever. I don't know what happened in 1992. I'll be happy for him to tell it to me. In 1992,
Well, then we come back to him.
History has it that Frundi, by popular vote, won. Biya hijacked the elections. I did not see anywhere Biya calling him and telling him that I lost.
In other words, maybe he was saying Frundi.
No,
Oh,
for the sake of
oh,
peace,
well,
for the
right.
sake of
The
peace,
thing I don't like-
people, because Cameroonians were ready for anything in this world.
Okay.
Yes.
But Fundi
now,
had to calm down
all
people for the
right.
sake of
In that
I think now
case,
you
you have tried
understand.
to you have now corrected your wrongs.
No, I'm not correcting my wrongs. You
Because
did not
Frundi
get me well.
understood that.
You did not get me well.
Frundi understood that. Frundi had no choice. He understood that, well, he's a gentleman. He understood that, well, instead of training the people on the street and another person determined to crush them at all costs, like what he did in Tiananmen in 1991 or 1989. 89.
Tiananmen
Good.
Square,
Now,
China.
I think what Jonathan did, some people think that it is out of pressure from the United States, the European Union, and others. No, I think it is himself.
Okay.
Because an individual has an option. We were talking here about Judas a while ago. You have an option to choose either the way you want posterity to judge you.
Alright.
Now, Jonathan wants to be judged like Mandela. He wants to be judged like Obasanjo. He wants to be judged like Jerry John Rawlings. He doesn't want to be judged like Robert Mugabe.
Okay.
He doesn't want to be judged like Paul Biya. He doesn't want to be judged like Mr. Hugo Chavez Frias, those dictators who
Or
have
maybe
ruined the country.
Denis Sassou Nguesso.
Or Denis Sassou Nguesso. And now the
I knew
problem,
you were
yes,
coming to
and the other problem is this. The problem of Nigeria is not just about Nigeria. It is beyond Nigeria. It is things that's happening in Congo-Brazzaville, in Rwanda, in Burundi. Why on earth would somebody like Paul Kagame want to run indefinitely as the president of Rwanda?
Okay.
Why on earth would somebody who is even a born-again Christian, Paul Nkurunziza, Pierre Nkurunziza, the president of Burundi, wants to tamper or tinker with the constitution? I think he did what was very good, and I felt when I heard the concession speech, the phone call of Jonathan, I felt very touched, and I discovered that was a man who really had his people at heart.
Okay, Mwalimu, observers of Muhammadu Buhari, they know that during his military rule from 1983 to 1985, he used a couple of strong arm tactics. Let me give you a couple of examples. He sent Fela Kuti to jail. That should interest you, Prince. Umaru Diko, a former minister in the Shagari regime, was actually drugged in London, put in a suitcase, and smuggled back to Lagos. Hundreds of thousands of Niger nationals who were residing in Nigeria were chased out of that country because there was a famine across West Africa from 1984 to 1985. Are these signals that something wrong may be building up in Nigeria under Buhari?
No, on the contrary, I'd like to remind you that was then. And Nigeria had suffered from about successive 6 coup d'etats after independence in 1960.
Right.
In 2009 or 1999, for example, up to this date,
The PDP?
the PDP has had an uninterrupted 16 years of leadership, civil rule. But I want to say that Buhari then was a military leader. Even as a military leader, he was far better than some civilian leaders we have in Africa today. Okay. What did he do? He is called Mr. Clean. He wanted to rid Nigeria of corruption. That is why he made it clear during his campaigns that either we kill corruption or corruption will kill Nigeria. That's why they used the broom to sweep away corruption. Right. He was a very strict leader. We should not look at what happened then. It's like you'll be asking me a question. Why did Jerry Rawlings? Because I will consider, if you agree with me, that Jerry Rawlings is the architect of the successes of Ghana today. When Jerry Rawlings took over power, you understand, he used a very strong arm to cleanse Ghana. He arrested so many people who refused to change and laid a very strong foundation that Ghana today is becoming a very powerful democracy in West Africa. Okay. And so you understand that most of these countries in West Africa, Ghana, Ivory Coast, Nigeria, they are competing in modernizing their countries through the right path.
All right. So Buhari's All Progressives Congress was actually established just about 1 year ago. It was a coalition of various opposition parties, Prince Afuakom. Is that a lesson for Cameroon's fractured opposition?
Yes. I think in I came back to Nigeria we were sent out of Nigeria during the days of
Buhari during the famine?
Yes, we were sent back during that period because I happened to be in Nigeria under 5 presidents, under 5 presidents, and in fact we were talking on.
Let's go on.
Yeah. We were talking on.
Well, I was asking you the question because the All Progressives Party that presented Buhari as candidate is actually a coalition of various opposition political parties. So the question is it a lesson for Cameroon's fractured opposition?
If at all we have opposition parties in Cameroon?
We have about 300?
300. Is that correct? Nigeria, which is bigger than us, in those days, I remember in 1978, when I went to Nigeria in the days of General Obasanjo, who handed over to Shagari, they had 5 political parties. Okay. I don't think they are up to 20 today.
All right.
I don't believe that they are up to 20.
So in other words,
yes, the creation of the mushroom political parties in Cameroon was just to say, okay, you want this thing, we are going to confuse you and you become more confused than ever. Yes, I want to believe so. You will become more confused, you will not know who is who, right. And that system has worked up to today. And I want to believe that maybe the person who came up with the idea of creating a political party, other satellite parties came from somewhere, they were necessary. And our problem in Cameroon is not the numerosities of political parties. Yes, it's not political parties. Because very soon, this is what the people are doing. Very soon when the elections are coming up, they will go around, come back. At the end of the day, we say, no, we're going to presidential majority. Everybody will rush him to go and grab his own and deceive the people and be chopping and be filling his stomach. Right. And you say, that is what is happening here. And nobody is ready to stand up here for a cause and to die for it. And Nigerians are prepared for that.
I even hear that, if my sources are correct, that the political parties which comprise the family head, the wife, and a couple of children and cousins across Cameroon. But that's not a bone of contention right now. I want to leave the Nigeria story with you, Mwalimu, by asking you, Nigeria counts 170 million and probably more citizens. It is not only Africa's most populous nation, it is also the continent's biggest economy. Critics say Cameroon has not been taking full advantage of these advantages lying just next door. Cameroon could boost its own economy by interacting more and more on formal basis with Nigeria, because they say most of the business and trade so far with Nigeria is informal.
Today, we have a situation where the African Union has become indispensable for peace. I know. No, I'm not talking about the African Union. I'm saying that we have not done enough to contribute for the unity of Africa.
All right.
Do you understand? I'm saying that the African Union's vision is for us to have a more stronger unity among African countries at the regional level. What has Cameroon been doing in the light in terms of the leadership in contributing, in participating, in enhancing the strength of the African Union? That's the first question I want to ask. And I'd like you to understand, if I'm saying so, it's because we have not made use of the neighbors we have. And the first is Nigeria. I should consider it a privilege to have Nigeria as a neighbor. If you were to make me a leader today, my first
major
treaty
trade partner
will be with Nigeria. Okay. Why? Because in the course of any trade between Nigeria and Cameroon, we stand to benefit more. Nigeria has the market.
All right.
Do you understand?
All right.
So simple logic shows that we would have been more powerful economically if we linked more to Nigeria.
Of course, Cameroon.
Than even with China.
Cameroon.
Why? Because
sell.
whatever we produce will be sold in Nigeria.
Of course.
Looking at the population of Nigeria.
Right.
I mean, to me, if you ask that question, it's redundant, because it's automatic that we should open up our doors with the Nigeria government so that we have open trade with them. We don't have. The road network is not the best. Whatever, we don't have the connection.
All right. So, Elie Smith, and that's our last question on this issue. Buhari comes from Daura in Katsina State. He's a Muslim northerner. Does this give you an impression that the war against Boko Haram could take a different dimension?
Well, it's going to take a different dimension, not because he's from the north and not because he's a Muslim. I think he has a background as a military man, and I think he's much more serious, perhaps, than Goodluck Jonathan is. That's my opinion. And to say one or two things about Nigeria and Cameroon, I think it's a very good partnership. For example, if Cameroon had been serious enough and constructed the long overdue promised Victoria deep sea port, I think it would have been a viable seaport for Cameroon. It would have kickstarted the economy of Cameroon very much. It would have been 1 million times better than that of Kribi.
Okay.
I think if you have an opportunity, one day we can have a debate about that, the viability of the Kribi deep sea port and that of Victoria.
Very soon.
Yes.
Prince Afuakom, Buhari joined the Nigerian army at the age of 19. He comes from a family of 23 children. He himself has been married twice, and he has 10 children. How many wives do you have?
Well, as a notable, I'm seriously looking for the number 4.
How many kids do you have?
I have 12 kids.
Okay. Mwalimu, is that the way to go for Cameroon in terms of increasing its population and becoming probably as strong as Nigeria?
From two perspectives, I, as an African, a Pan-Africanist, I would say that it's part of our culture to have more than one wife. Okay. I hope my wife is not angry because I've taken my oath to be married to her alone. But I want to say that as a Christian, we advocate for one man, one wife. But we're not angry with the Africans who decide to have more than, because the Cameroonian population need to skyrocket so that we should have some strength. Nigeria is powerful today because they have so many people and stuff. So it depends on individuals, and their choices. That's the point.
In the next couple of minutes, and we're heading close to the end of this weekend show. In the next couple of minutes, we'll be getting Keja and Henry Atembe to come and tell us what's hot and fresh from the Canal 2 International Newsroom. But before then, Elie Smith, ahead of the poll in Nigeria last Saturday, Buhari actually confessed, because in the course of his campaigns, he once said he would have loved to see Sharia law applied across all of Nigeria.
Yes, we are human beings and we do make mistakes. And sometimes out of emotions, we do make some utterances. I think Nigeria is not Cameroon. They have a very strong, independent civil society. They have an independent press. Their democracy is rock solid, as they have proven it again. So I think there is no cause for alarm. If he doesn't deliver, next 4 years, he's going to be sent away, as they have done with Goodluck Jonathan and the PDP.
And that's how democracy works. Some people say it's functional democracy making sense.
Exactly. It's not a democracy of Cameroon. Cameroon's democracy is in infancy or embryonic stage. We have to learn. We are not a democracy. And the other thing in Cameroon I must say is that we have a number of intellectuals who are not honest people. We don't have who come on TV screens and say lies. Okay. I think an intellectual must be honest to say the truth when you are in front of a TV screen, when you say something. Saying that there is no opposition in Cameroon is tantamount to, well, I don't know the type of adjective to do. We have an opposition. The problem is that we don't have a good civil society. We don't have a solid middle class. Our intellectuals are sellouts. They don't defend what they had to defend, and that is the contrary with Nigeria.
You want to flash?
Yes, I'm really very impressed with the remarks he has made, because if you had the opportunity to read the Genuine Intellectual written by Professor Emeritus Bernard Sokika Fallon, to every African freshman,
The Genuine
the
Intellectual.
Genuine Intellectual spells out clearly the role of an intellectual within the community. You have to be neutral, you have to stand for the truth. And talking about truth, ask Cardinal Tumi what he knows about truth and what is the value of truth vis-a-vis God and man. The intellectuals in Cameroon have failed us.
All right.
That's the problem.
All right, and I
A good
think
number of them.
right in the next couple of minutes, Kejan Henry should be joining us. He will join us to talk particularly about an ongoing experts meeting holding right here in Douala between experts from the Economic Community of West African States and the Economic Community of Central African States. They're meeting to lay the groundworks for a ministers' meeting and probably a summit of heads of states from both regions meeting in Equatorial Guinea to chart the way forward against Boko Haram in the far north. Kejan Henry, welcome.
Well, thanks, Divine.
It's good to have you once again.
Well, it's my pleasure to be here.
So tell me, what's hot and fresh in the newsroom? You're just from there.
Well, of course, when I heard you guys talk, well, I was impressed with the fact that Nigeria President-elect General Mohamed Buhari, his title remains General Retired, is out to weed out Boko Haram. That was one of his priorities, apart from economic